There comes a moment in every soul's journey when illusion can no longer protect itself. A moment when the lies we've built to defend our pride begin to crumble, not because anyone attacked them, but because truth itself grew too heavy to be held back. That, dear listener, is where the narcissist now stands. Their tower of vanity, their kingdom of manipulation, their carefully constructed image, all are trembling beneath the weight of something divine and immovable. And when such a soul begins to collapse, it is not graceful. It is loud, dramatic, messy, a hissy fit of the soul, a tantrum of a mind that cannot bear its own reflection. You will see anger, tears, chaos, denial, and behind all of it, the trembling fear of one truth. I am no longer in control. When the fortress of illusion begins to crack. There comes a moment in every deceiver's life when the weight of their own illusion begins to crush them. It does not happen suddenly, nor does it announce itself with thunder. It begins quietly, almost tenderly, as though the truth were knocking softly on the door of their conscience. For years, the narcissist has lived inside a castle, built from deception, carefully assembled bricks of charm, manipulation, and control. They mistook the admiration of others for proof of their worth, and the silence of those they dominated for respect. Yet everything they built was made of smoke. When people live by pretense for too long, they forget the feel of honesty. They grow accustomed to wearing masks until the mask becomes the face. And then, when reality finally arrives unyielding and merciless, it meets a person who no longer remembers what it means to be authentic. That moment is not just frightening, it is annihilating. Because when you have lived as a lie, truth does not merely expose you, it destroys the foundation you've been standing on. The narcissist believed that control was safety, that superiority was strength, and that manipulation was intelligence. But all of those were just substitutes for love, humility, and connection, the very qualities they discarded long ago. The irony is that the fortress they built to protect themselves has become their prison. Behind those walls, no light of genuine affection can enter. Behind those walls, no peace can breathe. And yet they stayed there, insisting that their kingdom of mirrors was real. But mirrors cannot hold up forever. One day, something small, perhaps a rejection, a loss of influence, or a sudden silence from the person they used to command, creates the first crack. And through that narrow fracture, truth begins to seep in. At first it is only discomfort, sleepless nights, an unexplained exhaustion, the faint awareness that something is wrong. But then the discomfort grows teeth. People begin to see through them, the praise becomes scarce, the control slips away. Their voice, once so confident, now trembles under the strain of being disbelieved. The collapse of illusion is rarely dramatic on the surface, but it is seismic within. A person who has built their life upon deceit experiences the fall not as a single event, but as a continuous unraveling. Each day brings a new exposure, a lie remembered, a consequence returned, a bridge burned. The world they once commanded begins to reject them, like a body rejecting poison. What they call misfortune is simply correction. The universe, in its patient balance, always restores truth to its rightful place. There is no malice in this. It is not punishment, but purification. A life that has drifted too far from reality must eventually be brought back, and often the return comes through collapse. For the narcissist, that collapse is the mercy they never asked for but desperately need. It is the only thing strong enough to break the spell of their own delusion. And so, they begin to feel what they have long refused to feel: pain, vulnerability, regret. The emotions they mocked in others now rise inside them like a tide they cannot control. The fortress that once made them feel untouchable is now shaking beneath their feet, and they stand in the rubble of their own pride, finally face to face with the truth they spent a lifetime avoiding. This is how illusion dies, not with fire and fury, but with the quiet, devastating sound of walls cracking from the inside. What remains after that is the unmasked self, fragile, exposed, human. It is a terrible awakening, but it is the beginning of all healing, because until a person faces who they truly are, they cannot become who they are meant to be. The hissy fit, the tantrum of a fallen ego. When the illusion finally begins to crumble, what rises to the surface is not humility, it is rage. The narcissist does not meet the truth with repentance, but with resistance. They do not bow to the correction. They fight it as though the universe itself has betrayed them. What you are witnessing when they unravel is not just anger, it is the panic of a dying ego, the last desperate cry of a false self that refuses to disappear. The hissy fit is not childish by accident, it is childish by nature. The narcissist, emotionally, has never grown past the point of believing that the world exists to serve them. Their tantrum is a confession of immaturity, a soul that never learned to lose, never learned to surrender, never learned to face pain without an audience. They pound the table of fate like a spoiled child whose toy has been taken away, blind to the fact that the toy they mourn was their own illusion of power. The moment life stops orbiting around them, they feel violated. The very laws of reality offend them. To them, consequence is cruelty, accountability is persecution, and loss is an act of war. So they rage, they slam doors, they break friendships, they insult the ones who love them most. They become volcanic, throwing fire at anyone who reminds them of their smallness. It is not merely anger, it is terror disguised as fury. Deep inside, they sense that something is dying, and it is not you, it is them. For the narcissist, rage is a form of self-preservation. They cannot bear to sit quietly and feel the emptiness that truth reveals. So they fill the silence with noise, with blame, drama, accusations, and tears that are not born of sorrow, but of frustration that their old tactics no longer work. They are no longer believed, and that disbelief burns like acid against their ego. The collapse of illusion has taken away their most prized possession, control. And when control vanishes, panic takes its place. Their tantrum is a storm meant to distract them from their own reflection. If they can create chaos around them, perhaps they won't have to face the chaos within. They will call others cruel, heartless, and ungrateful, for to admit fault would be to dismantle the very narrative that kept them powerful. So they scream, not to be heard, but to drown out the still, small voice of conscience whispering, "This is your doing." But the universe does not negotiate with tantrums, it does not yield to emotional blackmail. The lesson remains firm. The energy one sends into the world always returns, multiplied. They can rage against the wind, but the wind does not change direction. It merely carries their fury back to their own doorstep. And as the tantrum fades, as the shouting exhausts itself, what remains is the silence of defeat, the stillness after the storm, where the truth begins to echo louder than ever. This is the moment when some finally break, their health begins to falter, the adrenaline that sustained their delusion runs dry, they fall ill, not only in body but in spirit. The stress of maintaining their false identity begins to poison them from within. Insomnia, anxiety, mysterious ailments, all become messengers of the truth they refuse to hear. The body always tells the story the ego tries to hide. The trembling hands, the shallow breath, the restless mind, all bear witness that they are losing the war against reality. It is almost tragic, because this agony could have been avoided. If only they had allowed themselves to be human, if only they had let go of the need to dominate, to appear invincible, they could have found peace. But pride makes prisoners of us all, and the narcissist clings to pride as a drowning man clings to driftwood. They would rather sink than surrender. And so, the tantrum continues, not out of strength, but out of fear that without control they will cease to exist. The fallen ego does not die quietly. It thrashes, it screams, it blames, but every outburst only hastens the end. The more they resist the lesson, the harsher the correction becomes. This is the spiritual law that governs all things. What you refuse to learn gently, life will teach you painfully. Their hissy fit, their rebellion against consequence, is only prolonging the inevitable, a full collapse that no amount of rage can prevent. In time, the fury turns to fatigue. Their voice grows tired from shouting, their mind weary from blame, and as the storm dies down, they are left alone with the ruins of their own pride. This is the first taste of humility, not chosen, but forced. It is the quiet after destruction, when the narcissist finally realizes that anger has built them nothing, that the world has moved on without their permission, and that the throne they guarded so fiercely was made of sand all along. The body keeps the score, when health mirrors the soul. There is a sacred truth that few dare to face. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Every deceit, every manipulation, every unspoken guilt, each becomes an echo within the flesh. The narcissist may fool the crowd, but they cannot deceive their own selves. The body keeps the score, and sooner or later, the body demands payment for every wound inflicted, every truth denied, every act of cruelty justified by pride. When the spirit rebels against truth, the body becomes the battlefield. Sleepless nights, sudden exhaustion, heart palpitations, headaches with no medical cause, all are the whispers of a conscience silenced too long. These are not random misfortunes. They are the physical signatures of a soul that has lost its alignment with reality. For years, the narcissist sustains themselves on adrenaline, on the high of control, the thrill of dominance, the rush of being worshipped. But adrenaline is a poor substitute for peace. It burns bright, but it burns life away. And when the fire of ego consumes too long, it leaves behind ashes where vitality used to dwell. The human body was designed to live in harmony with truth. When we walk in compassion, gratitude, and humility, the body breathes easily. The pulse is calm, the sleep deep, the immune system strong. But when we live in deceit and self-worship, every system within us must bend to serve the lie. The heart beats faster to maintain the illusion. The muscles tighten to hold back the guilt. The mind races to silence the whispers of conscience. It is an exhausting existence, an inner war disguised as confidence. And in time, the body collapses beneath the weight of its own pretense. The sickness you see manifesting in them is not merely physical, it is spiritual decay, finding a voice. Bad health becomes the mirror of a diseased soul. No amount of makeup, success, or public admiration can hide what the body reveals in private. Their skin loses its glow, their eyes lose their light, and their posture, once proud, begins to fold under the invisible heaviness of shame. The body, once their instrument of control, becomes the evidence of their decline. Illness is often the universe's final attempt to awaken the stubborn. When words and warnings fail, pain becomes the teacher. It speaks in a language that cannot be ignored, the ache that won't go away, the fatigue that no rest can cure, the sickness that doctors can't quite explain. It is the soul knocking from within, saying, "You can't lie to yourself any longer." And yet, even in this sacred moment of mercy, most narcissists do not repent, they complain. They call it bad luck, or blame others for their misfortune. They see the symptom, but not the cause. They chase relief, but not redemption. But make no mistake, the decline is real, and it is irreversible without change. This is the natural law. What you plant in the soul, you harvest in the body. Bitterness poisons the bloodstream. Envy corrodes the heart. Rage inflames the nerves. Lies exhaust the mind. The body is not your enemy, it is your witness. And when you live long enough in contradiction to truth, that witness begins to testify against you in the court of your own health. And isn't it fascinating? For years they called you crazy, too emotional, too sensitive. But now, their own emotions eat them alive. Their stress devours their peace. Their arrogance isolates them until loneliness becomes a disease of its own. They tried to dominate the world around them, yet they lost the only kingdom that truly mattered: their own inner balance. This is the hidden justice of life. No mask can protect the soul from the truth it denies. You see, the punishment is not from God's wrath, it is from His mercy, because to allow them to continue unchecked would be to let their soul die while their body still walks. So, through sickness, life gives them one final invitation to humility. Every pain, every diagnosis, every sleepless night is a whisper. It's time to stop pretending. It's time to look within. But few ever listen. Most fight harder, deflect faster, rage louder. And in doing so, they accelerate what could have been reversed. Health is more than a physical condition, it is a moral one. You cannot live in perpetual deceit and expect your organs to stay loyal. You cannot carry hatred for years and expect your heart to stay strong. You cannot feed on drama and expect your nervous system to rest. The human body was not made for constant war, it was made for harmony. And when the narcissist refuses to make peace with truth, the body does what the conscience could not. It shuts them down. By the time they realize the connection, it's too late. The years of faking have carved deep lines, not just into their face, but into their soul. The sickness becomes chronic, the vitality gone. They may still smile for the world, but inside, the collapse is complete. Their body has delivered the verdict, their heart tried to escape. You cannot betray truth and remain whole. The mirror effect. Watching the narcissists fall from afar. There comes a sacred point in every survivor's story, the moment when you stop explaining, stop proving, stop rescuing. You no longer try to open the eyes of the one who refused to see. You step back and let life take over where your love could not. And from that distance, something remarkable happens. You finally witness truth doing its quiet work. You begin to see the slow unraveling of the narcissist's world, not through revenge, but through revelation. The charm that once hypnotized others begins to crumble. Their words no longer hold weight. Their power to manipulate fades. What once looked like confidence now appears desperate, rehearsed. People start to recognize the pattern, the drama, the blame, the endless need for control, and they quietly walk away. What they once used to rise now becomes the reason for their isolation. It is strange, almost holy, to watch it unfold. The person who once seemed untouchable is now chased by their own shadow. You see the fatigue in their face, the sickness in their soul. Every lie they told is now a truth they must live with. Every false story they spread about you becomes the mirror that exposes them. Their world begins to shrink, not because you wished it, but because truth cannot coexist with illusion forever. And you, the once broken one, find peace in the silence. You no longer feel anger or the need for justice. You understand now that their cruelty was never truly about you. It was a war they were waging within themselves, a war they disguised as superiority. Without your empathy to feed on, without your light to contrast their darkness, they are forced to meet themselves in the mirror. For the first time, they cannot hide from the emptiness they've built. You watch from afar, not as a victim, but as a witness of divine order. Their downfall is not your triumph, it is life restoring balance. What once destroyed your spirit is now destroying their illusion. The pain they projected outward has turned inward, demanding to be faced. It's not punishment, it's correction. And it comes wrapped in sickness, loneliness, or chaos, the very forms they once wished upon others. This is the law of reflection. Whatever you send out returns to you, amplified by time and truth. And when it returns, no one else can carry it for you. The narcissist is now left to sit with the echo of their own actions. They shout into the world, but the only voice that answers is their own. That is the unbearable sound of accountability. You, on the other hand, rise quietly. You learn that distance isn't bitterness, it's wisdom. Watching their collapse no longer feeds your ego, it strengthens your faith. because now you know the universe sees what was hidden, hears what was unspoken, and restores what was stolen. The mirror doesn't lie, and it never forgets. Their fall becomes the proof of your awakening. It shows you that you never needed revenge, only patience. The same truth that hurt you once now heals you. And as their mask falls away, your peace begins to shine in full. The law of return, when every seed comes home. Life, at its core, is a field of soil that never forgets what has been planted in it. Every thought, every word, every action is a seed invisible for a time, but never gone. The narcissist never believed this law applied to them. They mocked consequence as superstition and mistook mercy for weakness. But the law of return is not a myth. It is one of creation's oldest truths. What is sent out always finds its way back home. In the early days, it can look unfair. You watched them hurt others and walk away untouched. You saw them lie, manipulate, and still appear to prosper. They seemed untouchable, smiling, celebrating, while you were left to heal in silence. But time is the great revealer. What you didn't see was the delay between the planting and the harvest. Justice doesn't move at the speed of emotion. It moves at the pace of truth. And truth takes its time to grow roots deep enough that when it rises, it cannot be denied. Now the season has changed. The narcissist's seeds have come due. The same deceit that once built their world now unravels it, thread by thread. The same arrogance that made them feel invincible now isolates them. Their body grows tired, their spirit restless, their peace gone. Even their health begins to mirror their inner decay. Because the body always tells the truth, the ego tries to hide. The sickness they mocked in others is now the mirror of their own spiritual dis-ease. The universe is not cruel, it is precise. Every wound they caused, every betrayal they justified, every humiliation they imposed, it all circles back, multiplied, not as vengeance, but as reflection. Because life does not forget its math. What is sown in deceit must be reaped in disorder. What is sown in pain must be reaped in sorrow. This is the reason their world feels heavier, their path narrower. Karma is not punishment, it is a mirror held by time. And as this law unfolds, you are reminded of your own harvest. You planted forgiveness when they planted blame. You planted endurance where they sowed destruction. You chose integrity in a season of betrayal. And now those seeds are coming home to you in peace, abundance, and clarity. You are not lucky, you are reaping. You are walking through a field of answered faith. This is why you must never chase revenge. The law of return works without your supervision. What belongs to you will always find you. What was meant to harm you will always transform into wisdom once it has passed through your endurance. The same hand that balanced the stars balances your story. You can rest in that. So let them face their own field. You don't have to look back. Let them taste the fruit of what they planted, for that is how they will learn. Meanwhile, you keep planting love, truth, and patience. Because whatever you plant today will return to you multiplied tomorrow, the good and the bad alike. That's the quiet power of divine arithmetic. When the body speaks, the physical cost of a corrupted spirit. The body is the final witness. It remembers every lie we tell ourselves, every truth we bury, every act that violates our own conscience. The narcissist believes they can outthink consequence, that guilt can be silenced by distraction, that the body is separate from the soul. But the body is not fooled. It listens, it absorbs, and when the spirit grows too dark to carry, the body begins to speak. At first, the whispers are small: exhaustion, headaches, sleepless nights. The narcissist blames stress, bad luck, or other people. But what's really happening is far deeper. The soul is collapsing under the weight of its own deception. The dissonance between the mask and the truth becomes too great. And the body, loyal to truth, begins to protest. You've seen it before. The once vibrant face loses its glow. The laughter that once filled the room sounds forced, brittle. Their health begins to falter, chest tightness, anxiety, unexplained fatigue. The same energy they use to destroy others begins to consume them from within. Their nervous system becomes the battlefield for their own lies. Every cruel word, every betrayal, every manipulation has a price, and the body collects. The human soul was never designed to live in contradiction for long. To live in deceit is to live in constant war, a war the spirit fights and the body pays for. While you were healing in silence, learning to release pain, they were accumulating it. Every time they refused remorse, the pain they caused didn't disappear, it stored itself in them. It became the tension in their muscles, the weight in their chest, the insomnia that steals their peace. This is why you must never envy the narcissist's temporary comfort, because what they escape in the moment will find them later, through the language of the body. You cannot cheat truth without consequence. You cannot live in hate and expect health. Every cell in the human body responds to the atmosphere of the soul, and when the soul is sick, the body follows. There is no medicine that cures moral decay. No doctor can prescribe peace. It must be chosen. It must be earned through humility, repentance, and a return to truth. But for the narcissist, that path feels unbearable, because to heal, they must first face themselves, and that is the one thing they cannot do. So, the body continues to speak louder. The breakdowns, the panic attacks, the illnesses, they are not random. They are the natural consequence of a corrupted spirit trying to find balance again. The body, in its wisdom, forces the soul to stop running. It demands attention where the heart has been neglected. You, on the other hand, have learned to listen. You learned that healing is not just spiritual, it is physical. When you chose forgiveness, your body exhaled. When you released bitterness, your heart found rhythm again. The peace you feel is not abstract, it is biological. You have become whole because you stopped fighting truth. Meanwhile, the narcissist, still at war with themselves, decays from the inside out. Their body is now their judge, their teacher, their mirror. What they refuse to face in silence, they will now face in sickness. That is the divine order. When the soul refuses to confess, the body will. The divine exchange, how their collapse becomes your clarity. When the narcissist begins to fall apart, life is not punishing them, it is restoring balance. What they sent out is finally returning. What they built on lies can no longer stand. And the collapse you're witnessing is not your revenge, it's divine correction. You don't need to celebrate their pain, just understand it. What you're seeing is truth catching up to illusion. For years, they borrowed light that didn't belong to them, your empathy, your peace, your goodness. But when you withdrew, their borrowed light went out, and now they stand face to face with the darkness they created. This is the divine exchange. What they lost, you gained. Every tear you cried became wisdom. Every wound became strength. The same storm that exposed them refined you. And while their health declines under the weight of pride, your soul expands under the grace of surrender. You have become everything they pretended to be: peaceful, grounded, whole. That is the real victory. You didn't have to destroy them. Truth did. You simply had to survive long enough to see it unfold. So now, as their world falls into confusion, yours aligns with clarity. You are free, not because they fell, but because you rose. And that's what divine justice looks like, the collapse of deception and the quiet rise of truth.